connection of the health benefits, which people are kind of consciously looking for out of sauna, and then the quality of saunas is the fact that one kind of a clear signal about all the research that has been done is that
Welcome to this episode of Growth Island. My name is Mads Friis and I am your host as always. And today I got the pleasure of speaking with a really cool guest about saunas. Both what are some of the benefits of a sauna and how do you build a really good sauna? And that's actually a question I've been getting quite a lot. And the ones of the video will see I'm sitting with a dog. I got a dog home and she is misbehaving and it's the first time I'm trying that. So if you're on the video, that's why. And we also have a cat on the other side. So this is a very human and animal episode. But the expert that I got on is Lassi A Liikkanen. He is the author of 2 books on saunas. One of them is The Secret of the Finnish Sauna Design. The other one is in Finnish, which I'll get him to pronounce instead because that's normally not going that well. He has 2 doctor's degrees. He had a visit at Stanford University. He has been writing around 200 articles, actually 300, but he only wanted to take credit for 200 being good enough quality. And then he's an academic career as well. He's been part of around 100 peer-reviewed papers. So he knows how to do some research. So Lassi, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here.
Lassi, tell me a little bit more about saunas. Why do you love saunas that much?
Well, first thing is that I have to take in consideration that I'm here talking from Helsinki in Finland, and Finland is known for a couple of things. One of those things is sauna, or in Finland we say sauna, and that's probably the only word that's kind of recognized from the Finnish, only word from the Finnish language recognized all around the world. And I think it's not that bad. It's going to be a description for the Finnish culture and the whole country. I mean, even Finnish people also tried very hard to get this sauna emoji back in the day, about 7 years ago. But that didn't quite work out as we wanted. But the sauna still exists. And I think most of the Finnish people are kind of proud about the fact that we have sauna in almost every home, and there's kind of very long the Finnish. I mean, there are saunas also other places in the world, but the Finland is one of the few countries in the world where there's been kind of a rather unbroken history of sauna culture and sauna bathing traditions. So
you have a lot of saunas. We talked about it before.
We do. I think there's the Finland probably or definitely has the highest density of saunas per population. So we have 5.5 million people and at least 2.5 million saunas here in Finland. So it's totally possible for every Finn and even the visitors to fit in the saunas at the same time if they really want to.
That is quite impressive. I remember having to look up that fact several times when I've discussed it with friends. So the Finns definitely know something about saunas. So what are some of the health benefits that we know of saunas?
Well, I mean, saunas offer different type of health benefits, and I think it's been quite interesting at times, like since 2015, as we've had quite a lot of new information coming in about the long-term health benefits of sauna. I mean, the kind of like more direct health benefits of sauna have been recognized by all the sauna goers for quite some time, because I think if you do the sauna right, you will definitely feel quite different afterwards. But we've also learned through kind of large epidemiological studies by one research group operating in the University of Jyväskylä and University of Eastern Finland in the past 5 years about the multiple different types of health benefits that can be achieved by going into sauna very frequently. So I think they've discovered that there's kind of a decreased risk of different cardiovascular diseases, high blood pressure, cardiovascular or stroke, different kind of neurocognitive diseases, and I think even some forms of mental disease. So it's been kind of surprising that how large effects these researchers led by Professor Jari Laukkanen have found out about the different good things that sauna can do for you. I mean, it's not that there wouldn't have been evidence about the benefits of sauna so much, but I think we are now much more confident that frequently going to sauna will actually do you very good.
Yeah, we went from a lot of people saying it and claiming it and feeling it to now having some more academic proof of it. I've also heard like all-cause mortality decrease from sauna, but it's interesting with the studies coming out, and also interesting that a lot of the studies are actually from Finland. That's where more research has been done about sauna.
Yeah, of course, it's kind of controversial thing to be studying sauna in Finland, where everyone, or practically not everyone, but 90% of the population goes to sauna at least once a month, or some people go to every week, and some every day. But I mean, the Finland it's got a problem because it's very difficult to find people who would not go to sauna at all. So in terms of kind of organizing this kind of randomized clinical trial, it's actually difficult to, because you have to, if you're looking for a long-term effect, you would have to try to find the people who never went to sauna, which is practically impossible. And then again, if you're looking for a more like short-term, you have to kind of make a control group, which people are prevented from going to sauna, which might also be kind of difficult, because for Finnish people, the sauna has many functions, and particularly before pandemic, there's a lot of like a social sauna going. So it's not only like for the health benefits, but also kind of spending time with the people you know.
But now is it the social aspect? One thing I learned in a Finnish sauna that's a little bit different is that you're naked in a Finnish sauna.
Yeah.
That's like a general thing that you're always naked in the Finnish sauna, or is it more like 50% of the saunas?
Well, I think, I mean, let's start it from the fact that in Finland, most of the saunas, I mean, we said that we have like those, say, 2.5 million saunas. So out of those 25 million saunas, we have, I'd say 95% are private. So, I mean, then we have like quite a few public saunas as well. So the public saunas might have like different kind of dress code overall, but I think it would be very difficult to find a Finn that would use a swimming suit or anything else when they go into their own private sauna.
That makes sense. But so the public saunas, some people do wear clothes.
Yeah, I mean, we have like it has been for a long time. It has been so that like a swimming hall, some places like that, they have like separate sections for women and men. So in those cases, there's also the general recommendation is against wearing anything for the sauna. So that's one small kind of new. But then again, we've got these more like a new generation saunas, which are mixed gender. And so in those locations, for instance, in Helsinki, there's like Lassi or Helsinki public saunas. So they usually, or they basically require people then to wear swimming suits to sauna.
Got it. I know in Germany as well, there are many saunas where you have to be naked. And it's fun how our relationship to being naked has changed and how it is in different countries. Like in Denmark, you grow up showering like, well, with the same gender. But even when I was a kid, I think until 11 or 12, we actually had to shower together with the girls in school for gym. Where in Australia, no one showers together. I remember like I had a friend from Australia that was like shocked coming to a Danish gym, and even same sex people running around naked. But that's a whole other podcast about our relationship to our bodies and how that's changing and how we're becoming so afraid of the human body instead of seeing it as something natural. So you worked a lot on designing saunas. What are some of the key aspects? I know there's one important thing is the oven or the heater, or what's the correct sauna word to say?
Yeah, well, I think it all depends. I think the heater is a good general term, which I've been using. I mean, in my book, I basically have been have this kind of model, which I've been applying for the structure of the book, and help also, which I use kind of to understand if I, for instance, if I'm not kind of looking at a brand new sauna or trying to figure out what's wrong with an existing sauna. My kind of thinking goes around like 4 different themes. One of them is heat. The other one is air quality. A third one is interior design. And then the fourth one is this kind of like a sauna culture or sauna company aspect. And together, these kind of 4 factors are something that I try to use to explain why sauna feels the way it does in different ways. And what is about sauna heaters? Sauna heaters is kind of course, integral part of the heat experience. The heat is something that it's so easy to approach. When a person enters this kind of sauna room, when you walk into a heated space, it's there's kind of immediate embrace. You kind of feel it all over your body, whether the place is like warm, hot, very hot, or extremely hot. You get different kind of sensations, but that's where everything starts from. And I think particularly around Finland, there's a lot of like discussion and talks about like heaters and such. But I mean, they are kind of on the other hand, they're actually not that complicated part of the equation. In some ways they are, but I think it's relatively simple physics. You need a device that heats up the space, or otherwise it won't be warm. Because we have like there's a definition for the Finnish sauna, which basically includes some central elements that you need to have in order to have this kind of Finnish style of sauna. And it starts from having the heater, which has so-called sauna stones in it. The sauna stones are important for the practice that how you kind of perceive heat. There are several elements to it. One is that you heat up the room, so there's warm air in the room, but that's not enough. Usually the whole cabin heats up. So there's kind of the walls are also kind of high temperature. It's like 70, 80 degrees Celsius in typical Finnish sauna. So they are also kind of radiating infrared energy to your body. And that's important. But then there's like another important dimension is the fact that you have the sauna heater, which is equipped with sauna stones. And what you do is that you during the sauna bathing, you pour water on top of the stones, which saying that in the Finnish sauna, we have several ways how you perceive the heat. Of course, one thing is that you need to heat up the whole room, which basically means that all the surfaces, all the kind of warm surfaces in the room are providing this kind of radiating energy, infrared radiation. If you sit on top of this kind of a sauna bench, you feel it in your bottom. So there's energy coming through that way as well. And of course, the whole air where you're sitting, it's also warm. But then final element is that because you have the sauna heater equipped with the stones, one central part of the Finnish sauna ritual is that you pour water on top of the sauna stones. And what happens is that when water evaporates, it takes up a lot of energy from the hot sauna stones that goes into the sauna air. So the humidity increases in the sauna air, and that creates an interesting new sensation on your skin, and which is in Finland we call this löyly. The löyly is actually also my original Finnish book was called The Secret of Good Löyly. I didn't use the same word in English because I would have been quite cryptic, but this löyly part is very central to the Finnish type of sauna because it doesn't really exist in all some other sauna types. But so this kind of characteristics of the Finnish sauna, it's the heater and the sauna stones are very kind of important central elements. But then those create the heat.
And just to ask, because I've heard there's an electric oven you can get, or electric heater, and then fire-based heater. And something about that the different heaters, burners are creating different, is it irons in the air or something else?
Yeah, that has been the kind of long-standing myths or this kind of claims, but I think it surfaced somewhere in the 1970s. But I did in my own kind of desktop research, if you may say so, for the books that I've written. I've been looking into like not sauna specific studies about the properties of ions, and I think the general consensus is that even if the different type of heaters would be creating different kind of densities of ions in the sauna air, generally speaking, the difference that the ions have for the human well-being are somewhat negligible or at least questionable in terms of like scientific significance. So I've basically, as I think about things currently, I don't really kind of, I heavily discount the ion theory of sauna air quality. So I think there are quite a lot more important things. For instance, it was last year discovered that people have been increasingly worried about the so-called fine particle emissions that we get from burning wood. So because the wood burning heaters are quite essential in the Finnish sauna scene, but they are kind of facing existential threat, because in the all around European Union, there's this kind of press towards so-called eco-design requirements for different wood-burning appliances, which includes sauna heaters. And they will be in the future putting up very kind of tight requirements on how well-performing do sauna heaters have to be. For one thing, that so they shouldn't emit these. I mean, they kind of they have a lot of like harmful consequences if you have this fine particles in the air, which are usually kind of, for instance, they are kind of also created by traffic and heavy industry, but also like wood burning creates also those same particles, and so they're kind of very much unwanted. And now last year we actually there was a study from the University of Eastern Finland which discovered that the wood burning heaters also emit some amount of the same fine particles into the sauna air, unless they are kind of carefully kind of burned in before later usage. So I'm personally much more worried about those aspects than those ions.
Got it. So kind of the older theory, or some people believe that wood burning is best because of positive and negative ions, where in your experience and the research you've done, it probably doesn't have that much of an effect. That one oven still, what is it? Is it the electric one emits negative ions or positive ions, and the other way around?
Yeah, I think that was the hypothesis, or actually some kind of like a preliminary finding. But yeah, it's the evidence is so kind of scarce that I wouldn't even want to talk about that anymore.
Fair.
Because there are, I mean, if we kind of look at the big picture of the sauna air quality, which I generally think is very important, what we'll find is that people who, if you kind of heat up saunas with wood burning heater, like the ones that are being currently used, I mean, the Finnish wood burning heater scene totally kind of was changed after the Second World War. So it was actually quite important effect about the whole Finnish sauna changed quite radically actually in the 1950s towards basically, so the current Finnish sauna has only existed from like say 1950s to this decade. But most important thing about this kind of wood burning heater is the fact that it creates a huge airflow. Because if you burn 1 kilogram of wood, that will consume 1 cubic meter of air. And when you actually need to heat up the sauna, it'll take about like at least 5 or 6 kilograms of wood per hour, if not more. Can be easily even more than that. So it basically means that there's a huge amount of air going through this sauna heater appliance. And that, I think, is the kind of primary reason why people usually perceive much like comfortable air quality when they're inside like this sauna cabin that has a wood burning heater. Whereas these like electric heaters have been usually, I mean, the whole reason why they exist was that people wanted to build saunas in locations where you couldn't have a wood burning heater for several reasons. And some of those kind of the problem is that even though it's totally possible to design a sauna with an electric heater that works extremely well, and you can have a nice sauna experience in there, but it's also unfortunately kind of very easy to get it wrong. And I think it's more about those kind of failed cases that have given the electric heaters their bad reputation. But I think this is pretty much like a unique Finnish problem in a way that elsewhere in the world, I think there are locations in the world where you can't really operate a wood burning heater. For instance, in the UK, it's mostly forbidden to use a wood burning heater. So the question doesn't really emerge.
But so it's also interesting, as you're saying, that it might be more polluting to actually have the wood burning heater. Has the Finnish been like outraged if they're gonna start saying in the EU that they're no longer allowed to use their saunas, or what do you think will happen there?
Well, I think we're going to wait and see. It's less than 2 years until the new requirements will come in force. But the funny thing is that no one really knows what the new requirements are going to be like and how they will affect the industry. Because in Finland, we've got this kind of quite exceptional situation that we've still got like almost 25 companies all around Finland that are producing sauna heaters. A lot of those companies are producing wood burning sauna heaters, and the current outlook, no one really knows how the future is going to turn out. It's going to be greener, but it also probably means that there are going to be much fewer companies that can actually provide these kind of clean burning sauna heaters, for the fact that it's actually much more difficult nowadays, because we have this kind of so-called eco-design directive already in effect across EU, which has set requirements for like regular stoves or this kind of chimneys, but it's not yet being applied to sauna heaters, but it will in one way or the other. And be interesting times. So then we'll see what kind of a movement there will be. But unfortunately, the wheels are already in motion. So
it'll be interesting if they want to ban the ones that have already been set up. But it makes more sense that it's probably going to be for the new ones.
The thing is, it's going to be kind of renewal. I mean, no one's going to be kind of putting up any aggressions towards the old ones, but they probably need to have some like motivations for people to switch into the new ones.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's interesting with many things, we learn more and then we figure out we thought it was good for one thing, but it's bad for something else, like air quality, right? So I guess it's.
I think I was just I've been writing a story about this about the kind of history of the Finnish wood burning heater, which, as I said, changed radically in 1950s. There was an interesting period because the Finnish and it changed because there was the Second World War. There was kind of a in Finland was fighting the Soviet Union, but we were also fighting a war against this typhus fever, which was spread because of the kind of a small bug that lived like lice that lived in clothing, and we had to develop a certain type of like new type of a sauna heater in order to provide circumstances where we could use sauna as a disinfection solution, so we could effectively kill the bugs and their kind of eggs from those equipment.
Got it. So,
and the funny thing is, at the same time, what happened elsewhere in the world, they were using DDT, which was later on banned because of its a lot of negative things, but it worked as a charm against the same problem elsewhere in the world. But in Finland, we used sauna, and elsewhere in the world, they were using like chemicals.
We learn a lot. What are, if we just speed up, some quick fireside questions? Best wood materials are important for like creating the good indoor environment.
Well, I mean, the part of the Finnish sauna definition is that it has some like a wooden covering. So, and I think in Finland we've been traditionally using materials that are like local. So pine and spruce, aspen have been the kind of typical choice, just because that they've been available. And I think that it still kind of goes on. Well, nowadays we have at some point we have this kind of ash also became very favorable. So I mean, the wooden interior in sauna has several benefits in a way that it's also kind of the wood is relatively good insulation material, so it also makes it sound a little bit more ecological, and it's also has this kind of hygroscopic properties, so it's definitely a good choice. I mean, and that's why it's been prominently used in Finland. Although we do have, like, I mean, for instance, Russians have been building their banyas for ages with like ceramic tiles and this different type of material. So that's also possible. So it's not necessarily to construct a sauna with wooden materials, but I think it's preferable.
What wood would you use if you were building a sauna tomorrow, and you had unlimited budget?
I think what I'm kind of looking for the next sauna is probably that I'll be using thermally treated aspen.
And how come?
Favors. Well, I just basically like the natural looks of it, and also the thermal. So-called thermal aspen, thermal pine. They both supposed to have like very good qualities when it comes to like durability. good. Just it's kind of like a factor. Whatever stuff you put in a sauna setting, it has to be kind of it has to tolerate big temperature changes over time.
Of course. And how about glass? So, for example, one of my friends is looking at building a private sauna, and it's going to have a big glass party, but they want to make sure it doesn't condense and you can still look out and look at the beautiful view.
Well, I mean, that's usually not a problem. I mean, once the sauna heats up, there's not going to be any condensation. I think the condensation is a matter of when you have surfaces that are cold, which you can't heat up. But I think in the process of heating up a sauna, all the surfaces will, unless it's like unless you have something like a concrete or a very huge brick wall, those kind of surfaces won't warm up very quickly. Particularly during the colder times of the year, but normally that's not really an issue. Due to the fact that the Finnish saunas usually have quite high temperature.
Are there anything to be aware of, like if you have someone building a sauna for you that have never built a sauna before? Things that like you really don't do, like you end up building like a toxic little box.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things to take into consideration. I think first of all, you have to always kind of obey the kind of laws of physics in a way that all of the Finnish saunas they have benches, so people are seated much more higher up than they would not do in a normal room, and that's because when you heat up a sauna, it starts to heat up from the top towards the bottom. So naturally. You as a person going to the sauna, you want to be in the warm place, not in the cold place. So you kind of create a platform where you can elevate yourself to the level where it's actually warm and where this nice löyly will be located. So that's probably one of the things. Then the other very important thing is to observe, of course, the materials that you're going to use to sauna. As a funny anecdote, one of my friends was in Shanghai, and then they decided to build a sauna from the local resource materials. They decided to use eucalyptus for the wooden panel. Well, it looked nice. Even had a quite nice smell when it was in the room temperature. But what happened when they started heating up the sauna is that it actually first started to resemble a little bit like like a steam bath with this very strong incense. And then it eventually, when it reached this kind of typical sauna temperature, it was totally intolerable. So there's the amount of like this kind of, let's say, gas, but some kind of some vaporized material out of the eucalyptus wood made it totally impossible to be in the sauna. So they had to redo the interior in order to get rid of the eucalyptus and use other type of wood material, which didn't do these funny things. Then there's, of course, like matters of fire safety, and also the fact that if the Finnish sauna is used in the way I described earlier, that the people create löyly by pouring water.
We call that sauna goose in Denmark. I'm not sure if you heard the name.
Yeah,
sauna goose, I think in Germany.
Yeah, and in German, there's talk about this Aufguss, which includes the same ritual. So, so the important part there is that when this happens, there'll be quite a lot of moisture in the air, and this humidity doesn't like to stay in one location, but it tries to go everywhere it can. So you actually have to take into consideration, partly if you're building a sauna indoors or inside another building, that how will you do the ventilation in order to prevent any kind of trouble, like structural damage that might incur from this leaking humidity. So I think those are the basic things, but there's quite a lot small details that really come into play when you're trying to ensure that you have like a safe, reliable, and pleasurable sauna.
It's definitely growing a lot in popularity here in Denmark after the lockdowns. Well, just before the lockdowns and after the lockdowns, many people wanted to do winter swimming, and for that, it's also nice to have a sauna afterwards. So everything from cars that can like have a sauna to like trucks to these saunas being built around are increasing in popularity.
Yeah, I think one sort of like argument that you asked me earlier if there's any questions I should answer, but there's one comment I definitely want to make about this kind of connection of the health benefits which people are kind of consciously looking for out of sauna, and then the quality of saunas is the fact that one kind of clear signal about all the research that has been done is that in order to kind of get these great health benefits out of sauna, it's best that if you attend the sauna rather frequently, like 3 or 4 times a week. And it's kind of quite simple question or simple math in my mind. Think about that. If you actually need to do something like several times a week, would you rather, for instance, if you need to go running 3 or 4 times a week, would you rather use very bad, poorly fitting shoes, which will always kind of hurt your feet, or would you rather kind of get the best possible shoes that make your running kind of as comfortable as possible? Same thing for sauna. In order to kind of ensure that you actually do and like to go to the sauna, maybe even every day, if you're a very lucky person, it's definitely necessary to make sure that the sauna conditions and the sauna is of the highest possible quality, so that you actually can stay there and kind of enjoy your time there every day. Otherwise, you probably won't be going to sauna that often if it feels very kind of painful. So my kind of personal meter, or the only one like the metric that you need in this regard, is the amount of time that you can spend in your own sauna. If this kind of metric goes beyond like 15 minutes, then the sauna is fine. Almost anything be under 15 minutes is not good. Particularly if it's like under 5 minutes, then it's total failure, because you can basically forget about getting any kind of health benefits at that time.
Yeah. What are some of the easiest wins in regards to building a good sauna? Like some simple things that might not cost that much money, and you do it once and it's just easier.
Well, I think the funny thing is that a lot of like doing sauna, designing good saunas is not that. Let's put it this way: doing construction of a bad sauna and a good sauna might not be that much different. It might take almost the equal amount of time and effort in order to create these two designs, and the material cost is probably going to be negligible, particularly when I've been looking at like a brand new Finnish small house saunas, which are quite expensive. I'd say that people spend about, when they construct a new house, which would be like, let's say 300,000 euros, the amount of money that they will put in the sauna alone will be about like 20,000 euros or something like that, if you kind of take everything into consideration. And the difference in this scale, if you have to do this kind of good sauna versus bad sauna, the difference in price will probably be like 5-10% at maximum, probably even less than that. So it's actually not.
What are the main things that make the difference between the good and the bad sauna?
Yeah, but now the difference is in the design and in the details, as always. So I think one of the kind of major things, if I said that those are like 3 things, there's heat, air quality, and interior design. The kind of biggest problems I see usually are in the air quality. So all type of saunas require some kind of ventilation, and it just can't be any kind of ventilation, because if it's poorly designed or poorly constructed, ventilation won't do almost anything. So not good. You'll just end up with a sauna that feels more or less kind of uncomfortable and disappointing.
Okay. And how do you ensure good ventilation? For example, the sauna that I go to have a little hole in one side of the truck. It's some saunas that are being set up once a year in the wintertime. And then these trucks that are being set up, so it's not a wooden sauna inside, like the interior is wooden, but otherwise it's like, it's a, what do you call it? It's not a car, but it's kind of like when you see these trucks, they have this like big part that you can roll in. And then ventilation very much comes from people walking in and out, because there's so many people using them. So sometimes they're like not that warm because there's constantly someone walking in and out and jumping into the cold water and then coming back again.
Yeah, that's another kind of design thing. I mean, but keeping the sauna warm, that's part of like the heat equation, which you have to solve separate. And I know that locations which have this kind of, like in Finland, there's the ice swimming is very popular. or winter swimming. If not every year you have ice, but this year we've had a lot of ice. That is very challenging environment for heating the sauna and keeping the sauna warm. But that's like one problem. And then the air quality and ventilation is a different one. But this is, I usually can describe this a little bit like a chess. So that once you make one move, for instance, deciding what type of heating solution you have in the sauna, you need to make like different kind of adjustments in your game when it comes to ventilation, because the different type of heating solutions require different type of ventilation solutions.
That makes sense.
There's no kind of one fits all solution.
So Lassi, you cannot just tell me like get this ventilator and then it's going to be fantastic, because it needs to.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. I mean, it begins from how you're going to heat up the sauna, which is, I mean, you have these like a lot of people in Finland. We have like 600,000 cabins or cottages where people spend their summers mostly. Some people also live there almost all through the year. There, people like to use wood-fired heaters mostly, and that's a different story. But when you're back home in a small apartment where you have your small electrically heated sauna, then there is a totally different solution usually, because it's tied then not to the heater alone, but also the whole infrastructure of the building.
Makes sense. What about infrared saunas? Is that something you look into as well, or you only look at, not only, but you focus on normal saunas?
Well, I think there's like a spectrum that we have. There's like this Finnish type of sauna, which is characterized by this heater thing and the sauna stones, as I said. And in a way, I'd like to say that is the definition of sauna. Then we have devices which are not sauna. For instance, the infrared cabins or different kind of infrared heater solutions. Of course, there's like a middle ground. So that, for instance, the Finnish company Harvia has been selling the concept of hybrid sauna, which basically is a combination of having like this kind of stove heater sauna in combination with the infrared panel sauna. But the kind of
what do you think about the hybrids? Because it sounds like more is better, but that's not always true. But the idea of stacking both infrared sauna and or infrared cabin and a sauna sounds good.
Well, I mean, I think the added value is somewhat limited, because the reality is that, as I described before, that how the heat actually works in Finnish sauna is that even in very difficult, like standard Finnish sauna, we still do experience the infrared radiation, and actually quite a lot of it. Almost, I think, in most of the approximations and calculations that I've seen, approximately like 50% of the energy, the thermal energy that we receive in our body in a Finnish sauna is also infrared radiation. So actually, the infrared sauna is actually more like poor man's version of the Finnish sauna.
So what have the people misunderstood? Because I spoke to a guy as well, Simland, who is this Estonian guy that also loves saunas. And he said if he had to choose only one, I think I remember right, he said he would take an infrared sauna over a normal sauna, if he could only choose one. But he would like to have both. What will someone like him have misunderstood since he is saying that?
Well, I mean, the infrared sauna is, or let me call it infrared cabins, are a little bit kind of different in a way that they are much more flexible in locations where you can install them. I mean, there are occasions where it's quite impossible to have like a proper Finnish sauna installation. So I think those cases it's totally fine to be excused. But as I said, you can basically get in a Finnish sauna setting, you can achieve infrared sauna type of experience quite easily if you just don't apply any water. If you just heat it up and keep it dry, particularly if the sauna is small, the experience won't be much different than being in an infrared sauna.
Cool. I'll stick to the sauna that I have close by. I don't have room for an infrared sauna yet either. They're actually building a new sauna in 2 years' time where I live. It's going to be a really big project. I hope that they consult someone like you or someone else to make sure it becomes a proper healthy sauna and that the ventilation is proper in the oven. But I'll try and see if I can get a hold of them to make sure that it's not just going to be a beautiful architecture, but actually a well-designed sauna. Hopefully it will be. The people that are involved are very passionate about saunas, and sauna goose and the whole culture around it?
Yeah, I think it's been actually a little bit of like I'd say sad development in Finland over the past 20 years. If we look at the saunas that have been built in private buildings, that we've had, I'd say the biggest innovation or changes in the Finnish sauna have happened in the private area, have been happening in the way how people kind of decorate or do the interior design, particularly using materials and like different kind of treatments and like coating for wood, because it hasn't been very long possible to treat wood materials so that they are any different color from like traditional wood. It used to be all transparent, but nowadays you can kind of camouflage your sauna in any color you like. I've used the illustration example from in Finland. There's the Burger King restaurant have their own private sauna, and they've been using the Burger King brand colors to decorate that. There's actually, I don't know if it's going to be, but you can basically see the colors here in this image, and yeah, you can do that, but I don't think we shouldn't do that. So a lot of the attention in the Finnish sauna building area has gone into the creating kind of flashy, good-looking saunas, but there have been a lot of compromises than how they actually work. So if you ask me whether I would like to have a sauna that looks good in the pictures or that feels good when you're actually in it, I think the choice is pretty simple for the latter.
I definitely agree on that. Lassi, time is running, but one question I haven't asked you, but I need to ask you about, is the hat that you're wearing. Is that like a traditional Finnish hat? I know the answer, but please help enlighten the listeners.
Yeah, this is a felt hat. I think that felt hats are kind of common, particularly in the Baltic countries and also Russia. This hat actually comes from a Russian banya that's located in San Francisco. So it's kind of a weird incident that I'm wearing it today, because sauna hats are actually not that common in the Finnish sauna culture currently, for the fact that in Finland people usually use quite like moderate temperatures in the sauna, and also kind of moderate amount of steam or löyly. So it's not really necessary in most places to use sauna hats, whereas it's a little bit different in some other places where the saunas can be very hot or humid, and they're protecting your head is kind of good security in order to be in the sauna for a long time.
So you can be longer in a sauna, and you can also be longer in the cold water if you have that kind of hat.
Yeah,
it's the trick that I learned.
Yeah, it kind of helps because your head is so kind of important, a place where the heat exchange happens. So it also a little bit similar kind of thing happens in sauna if you kind of if you're sitting or if you're in kind of a laid back position. It kind of changes things quite a lot.
So Lassi, anything that I should have asked you about that we didn't get to talk about in regards to saunas today? I know we could probably talk like for days about sauna and the design and so on. It's something you're deeply passionate about and spend so much time on.
Well, I think for anyone who's new to sauna or has had like very haphazard or random experiences, I think the most important thing to take into consideration when you are kind of starting or restarting your sauna path is to try to figure out and find kind of sauna environment, circumstances that are kind of suitable for you. Because it's not, I mean, in Finland, people do have different preferences about sauna. There's no kind of I personally say that I'm kind of more flexible than some other people about what is the kind of like perfect temperature for sauna or the right temperature. I don't think there is one. I'd say it's kind of like 55 degrees Celsius, from 55 to 110 Celsius degrees is kind of, I think, okay. I don't personally enjoy the over 100 degrees saunas at all. Some people do, and that's just fine. But I think it's important that if you are just experimenting with the sauna, don't really kind of read any Bible that tells you that you have to be in the 85 degrees or 95 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes in order to do the sauna properly. That's not just right. You have to find the kind of solution that fits you. Kind of take your time and don't try to kind of feel the social pressure. For instance, there are like individual differences how you start sweating. Some people take more time when they start sweating, so it's very important that you don't really rush into very hot sauna if you're not already in the condition that you can kind of keep your thermal balance that way. So know yourself.
I think that's such an important advice, and the same thing goes for so many aspects of life. And that you might have read like this study is saying this and this is really good, but we are all different, so we need to figure out like what fits for us. Same thing with fasting. Start slow. People that have migraine, if they start fasting for too long in the start, they will get migraine attacks. So same thing goes for sauna. Ease into it. Same thing goes for Wim Hof breathing. Take it easy in regards to how long you have to hold your breath. So I really appreciate that advice. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so I think I have this website called saunalogia.fi, where there's some amount of English content, although it's predominantly Finnish stuff over there. Then I have, for all those people interested in English material, there's a whole book. It's available on every Amazon as a print-on-demand book, The Secrets of Finnish Sauna Design, which is kind of introduction, or rather advanced, from introduction to advanced level of sauna creation, which should give you all the necessary information that you need in order to understand what the good Finnish sauna requires. So those are the kind of place to get in touch. I'm available on Twitter, also a Facebook page, and sometimes on Instagram. So there you go.
I'll make sure to link to that in the show note. Lassi, I always end up asking my guests 3 advice for living a happy, healthy, and meaningful life. It can be related to sauna. It can be some other life lessons that you had through your life that you've seen are key for living a good life.
Well, I think in Finland, it's natural to start from going to sauna more frequently. The more frequently, the better. Drinking enough water, and then sleeping.
I actually hear sleeping quite often in the advice, whether it's researchers, athletes, and so on. It's yeah.
I think there's also there's actually a little bit funny lack of evidence regarding how much benefit you actually get to sleeping from sauna, because a lot of people have there's been a study about, like global study about people who are kind of sauna enthusiasts. They usually describe the kind of direct benefits of sauna as how it improves their sleep, but that hasn't been really kind of never scientifically proven. But a lot of people do subjectively seem to kind of benefit quite a lot from sauna. But then again, you have to kind of consider the sauna is also exercise, and so if you're trying to do the sauna last thing in the evening, it probably won't be the perfect match for your good night's sleep.
That's what I heard as well, that it helps, it loosens up, but that you don't want to do it like 2 to 3 hours before bed, ideally for sleep. But if you don't have a choice of doing it any other time, it might still be better for your health in general. But that's kind of the discussion has not been, or the verdict has not been reached yet. But cool. Lassi, thank you so much for coming on this episode. I really appreciate our conversation.
Pleasure.
I know the listeners are really going to appreciate it.
Yeah. Please be in touch anywhere, wherever you are. If you have any sauna related questions, if it's a good day, I will be able to answer you.